Start. Good evening, everyone. I am Harshita Jain, and I am going to be the host for today's event. On behalf of the entire team of VishwaConclave, I would like to welcome you and wish you all a very happy Republic Day. On this auspicious occasion, we feel extremely proud to have with us Lieutenant General Kamal Jit Singh, sir. Thank you so much for coming on board with us, sir. It's truly an honor.
Thank you, Harshita. I also feel very privileged and in a way rejuvenated to interact with the young people from your elite institution. So I'm looking forward to a meaningful interaction with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me begin with a very quick introduction first. So, Lieutenant General Kamal Jit Singh, sir, who is Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, and Bar, is a retired Indian Army officer and former General Commander-in-Chief of the Western Command. During his entire tenure, he has served in several areas including Nagaland, Manipur, as well as Punjab. He has also contributed his services for a paramilitary unit, the Assam Rifles, and his efforts towards the United Nations Peacekeeping Forces, which is commonly abbreviated as UNPKF, were rightly acknowledged and praised by the Chief of the Indian Army Staff. So, sir, I just mentioned a couple of your achievements from the multiple things you have done for our nation. So my question to you is that what inspired you to join the Indian Army in the first place? What was the motivation or the driving force behind it?
See, when I grew up, Harshita, you always have to take into account the ecosystem around you. I was growing up in a small Mofsil kind of a town in Bharat, what we colloquially refer to as a Kasbah. So that is in Bharatpur district and it is called Nadwai. It's a small little, maybe overgrown village. So I was growing up over there and it was 1966. Now, 1966, if you chronologically place on our calendar, you'll find that we had lost the war in 1962. Then in 65, we had a war and we had won that war, and that war was People's War. Our Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri had given a slogan, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. So largely, I came from a farmer family, though my father was in civil services. But at core of our heart, we were farmers. So we, like my parents, thought it's best for me to go through an affordable kind of a public school education. So they put me to a Sainik school. And I then went to a Sainik school in 1966 in January. And after that, it was just a kind of a continuation of that journey. I was in uniform at the raw age of 10 years. And then next thing that came up in 1973, rather in 72 only, we wrote the exam for NDA. 71 war had just finished. And my mother used to say that, see, India is getting into war too often. 62, 65, 71. So these wars are taking place. Why are you getting into this? I was lucky to have got an admission into BITS Pilani, also into Merchant Navy Training Institution. It was called INS Dufferin that time. Now it is called INS Rajendra probably. But I chose to join NDA. And from NDA, I went to IMA and then got commissioned into Army. So that's how I got inspired, because in the country, the fervor was Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. And the Prime Minister had given that call. So there I am. From 66 till 1966 till 2016, I was in uniform in some form or the other.
And that's great, sir. And I'm pretty sure you must have faced a lot of difficulties in your tenure. So could you just elaborate on how these difficulties impacted or, in a way shaped your life?
See, when you go into armed forces, the culture over there is actually all of us have a lot of capabilities inside us, but we hesitate to use them. So when you train for armed forces, what actually is done is that those capabilities are unlocked in front of you. You go through very rigorous form of training. Like I was in a Sainik school, but the maximum distance I had ever run in life was about 3 kilometers. So first day in National Defense Academy, we were taken for a run from Khadakwasla to Pune crossing and back. And after we came back, rather in between, we were told you are going to run 10 kilometers. So many of us thought that we are going to die because maximum distance I had run was 3 kilometers. There were people from totally civilian background who had not even run more than a kilometer maybe. And there on that day, we ran 10 kilometers and survived. So lot of, it's all in your mind. That space is energized in armed forces. You have constraints, you have challenges, but you have also time limits, and you have to perform in that time with excellence. So difficulties come, they are bound to be there, but each difficulty unlocks a certain capability inside us and also gives us that sense of empowerment that yes, I can do it. So that's how armed forces have trained me, and I'm grateful to armed forces for that. They have actually taken a village boy from Bharat, and shaped him into a person who could rise to the rank of Lieutenant General, become an army commander. And in this journey, I must tell you that unlike some, maybe you are sitting in Devlali, you have the Fauji connection, but I had no Fauji connection. I had zero Fauji connection. I had nobody in the Fauj from my family. Despite that, armed forces allowed me to rise. So armed forces has got, there may be some odd aberrations, they happen all over. But by and large, armed forces is a very, very fair system. It allows you, gives you great opportunities, provided you are willing to take them. So I'm grateful to armed forces for whatever they've done for me. They have shaped my destiny, a career for me. And like you said, I have retired, but I have not retired. Armed forces taught me to re-attire. There is nothing known as retirement in life. So I re-attired myself, and after re-attirement, I have done multiple things. And I am still doing it, and I am enjoying it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was very well rephrased, I must say. And sir, in the armed forces, you were commissioned into the 63rd Cavalry, and because of their crucial role in the 71 war, which you just mentioned. So how were your initial days in such a highly decorated regiment?
My regiment initially treats everybody who joins with a sense of equanimity. It wants to shape you. It doesn't want to indulge in you or lull you into a belief that it's a cushy life. So it exposes you to hardships. So I also, on commissioning, I was made to stay with troops, with my Jawans. I was given a charge of a tank. My regiment has some excellent traditions which we have inherited. So as you went along, like when I commanded my regiment, I had some very serious difference of opinion with my boss. And that was basically professional, because I was telling him that this will not go along in my regiment. And I will have to uphold the traditions of my regiment. I should be given a chance. And that belief was validated, because in a kind of operational exercise scenario, I executed what I felt was right, and that was lauded, and that was appreciated. So when you go to such regiments, you have a kind of a burden also, because I always tell the new people who join my regiment that you are wanting to get into a Shatabdi train or a Rajdhani Express. So you cannot get into this train on a walking mode. You have to hit the track running hard. You have to be running to be walking. So you have to quickly change your gears, come into your top performance gear. Then only you can survive or you can work well. Initially, you are given a little leeway, but expectations are there and you have to stand up to that. And that's the culture of that regiment. I would believe and I would want that the younger generation there also upholds that and stands by with those values.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they would carry forward your legacy. We have also heard that your regiment was called as the Ghost Regiment. So is there an interesting story behind it? Why was it named so?
See, Bangladesh operation, if you look at the map of Bangladesh, India surrounds Bangladesh from 3 sides, and on the 4th side is a sea. So operations in Bangladesh were launched from multiple directions. So each of these directions had a corps operating. So from the West Bengal side, 2 corps was launched and 1 squadron of my regiment was there. From north, my regiment was launched. And from the east, from Tripura, Meghalaya side, independent squadron from my regiment was launched. It is just coincidental that out of very few regiments in Armored Corps which have an independent squadron, my regiment also had. There were only 5-6 regiments, so my regiment had the honor of having that independent squadron, and that squadron happened to be in the same theater. So, and also just before operations, we were given new T-55 tanks. So T-55 tanks, we shed our old PT-76. They were shown today in the Republic Day parade also. So it is an amphibious light tank. So PT-76 tank was given to our independent squadron, and whatever armored cars were there, that became another squad. So normally a regiment has 3 squadrons, we had 5 of them. So from 4 prongs, my regiment was launched. And every time Pakistanis heard a report and they said, which regiment is doing this? And they said 63 Cavalry. So their staff officers and their operational planners, they got very puzzled. They said, what is this? Is this a ghost? Is this a Khalai force? Khalai is the Urdu word for ghosts and spirits. So that's how the name came to us. And somewhere, some reporter in media also wrote a story that Ghost Regiment strikes again. So that's how our regiment, and then tanks from my regiment were the only mechanized column which reached Dhaka. So that's also great achievement. So it's a great legacy we cherish. We are very sort of proud of that. And see how that legacy carries forward. When I was commanding officer, we have this thing of not using lights on tanks in desert. See, in desert, if you switch on one torch also, it can be seen from miles. It can be seen from kilometers because there is no other thing around it. There are no buildings, there are no concrete jungles. So one light will travel and will be seen. So if you switch on your lights, you give away your position. So we do not switch on lights in our regiment. We just do not. We are ready to take risk because to go in a column, you have to, if you switch on the light, it becomes easier to place each other. And tank is something which weighs 60 tons. So imagine a 60-ton vehicle hitting another. What kind of accident will take place? So to remain safe, there is a tendency to switch on lights. But we have trained our regiment not to switch on light, go straight on their bearing and maintain that. It requires a lot of confidence and training. So my boss, like I was telling you about the difference of opinion, he was telling me that you switch on lights. It's dangerous. There'll be accident. And I told him, no, we will keep the light off. We will not switch it on. And by God, we did not switch it on. And we went past the people who were witnessing that, and they couldn't believe it that we had gone past them. So the senior most officer there, He called it a ghost maneuver. So a ghost regiment doing ghost maneuver, and that was 20 years after this operation. Why 20 years? You're 27, 28 years after that. So the legacy is carried forward in things that you invent and innovate. So that's how. This is why what I say about my regiment, about that ghost, that enemy should not see you and you should surprise the enemy. Spring a surprise on that.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I'm pretty sure your boss must have later on agreed to what your decision was regarding keeping the lights off.
So he had no choice because his boss told him that this is a ghost maneuver and this needs to be taught to everybody.
Right.
So he really had no choice because his boss told him then. So
okay,
it became an acceptable sort of maneuver after that.
Yeah. So you've also served in the northeastern states of India, and we all know that these are certain regions which are highly prone to terrorism and insurgency, due to which there is a lot of loss of precious blood. So what, according to you, should be the steps and countermeasures which should be performed in such vulnerable areas for maintaining peace?
Historically, Northeast is a peripheral area of India, and such areas, and ethnically also there are differences because people in Northeast are from a Thai Mongoloid kind of a stock. So, that's why, unfortunately, in our country, a lot of people, when you see them, they call them Chinkis and all, because they have affinity towards, or they have homes and all, have got physical affinity, and their customs and all are different. So there are these centrifugal kind of forces. You all are engineering student. When particles are rotating around the nucleus, few which are in the outer orbit or in border areas, they have a tendency to fly off. So there is this centrifugal force exerted on them, which is a function of their differences, function of lack of development there, and a feeling of alienation which builds up because of physical distances which are there. So there have been some kind of insurgency, militant movements over there. We have resolved some of them. Mizoram has been resolved largely or completely resolved. Tripura is about 95% resolved. An odd simmer remains. There is practically no insurgency now in Meghalaya and Assam. Only one odd district of Sonitpur in Assam. And there is something in southern part of Arunachal, which is in, two odd districts which is there, which border northern Nagaland. So Khonsa and Tirap Changlang, those are the districts where it is there. And Nagaland and Manipur. But the insurgency is at very low order. It's more like a simmering kind of a thing. Now, how to resolve it is a big challenge. Because Naga insurgency is the Gordian knot. If you unravel it, then everything can get settled down. And NSC and IM is the key group, which is like a most powerful group there. We have a ceasefire with them from 1997 and with some other groups and all also. But we are not able to come to resolution because some of their demands are not tenable. Demands like having a separate flag, a separate constitution. You can have separate provisions in the constitution. You can give them a provision to maybe fly a separate banner on certain tribal and such like occasions. There are also issues about integration of all Naga areas. So what is required is basically development, economic sort of opportunities there. A lot of solutions which are devised by people in a top-down manner who are sitting in Delhi. But I think what is required is a bottom-up approach. You genuinely see what those people require. A lot of our bureaucrats and even ministers go to Northeast for an odd day on Hornbill Festival and tick the box and come back. It's an annual pilgrimage. You go there, collect 1 or 2 Naga shawls, 1 spear, you come back and you just smile and you make some programs. A lot of money doesn't even reach where it is supposed to reach. So basic security situation is very stable. There is no big issue. An odd ambush takes place because we are not resolving the thing. But economically and socially and politically, we have to resolve that problem. And we need to do it in a, I would say, in more honest manner. Because sometimes people who are put in charge, they try what I call as, you need smart solutions. Okay. But you don't need smart Alex. Because some people are becoming smart Alex. If you build a long-term trust and faith, then we can win over that population, and that is required.
Yes, sir. So talking about the measures which need to be taken for the northeastern states, recently the Chief Minister of Nagaland, they requested the Government of India to repeal the AFSPA, that is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in this region. And repealing the AFSPA has also helped to bring peace to Tripura and Punjab. So as you have already served in these regions, what are your thoughts on this particular subject?
The Armed Forces Special Power Act is a function of an area being declared as disturbed. There is something called as Disturbed Area Act. Now, who declares an area disturbed? Firstly, the state government makes a proposal and the central government has to accept it. In certain cases where there is a difference of opinion, central government can overrule the state government and can declare an area disturbed. Currently in India, J&K is under Disturbed Area Act. Nagaland complete is under Disturbed Area Act. Parts of Manipur, large parts of Manipur are under Disturbed Area Act. And some districts of Arunachal are under Disturbed Area Act. Rest, it is not there in Tripura, Mizoram, parts of Assam, Meghalaya, it's not there. Good. So one thing is that this is my belief, that in such areas, everybody becomes comfortable with low order of insurgents. I'm making a little bold statement, but allow me to make it. Because agencies get honors, get awards, get extra allowances. Armed forces also get that. Because if you serve there, you'll get extra money, you'll get extra awards, you will go for some courses, all that will happen. The state governments are happy because you are getting additional funds, and many of these funds are not audited. The insurgents are happy because they are still doing extortion. They are running their bloody apparatus based on that. So everybody seems to be comfortable with this kind of simmering kind of a disturbed area which is there. But I think the requirement is to incentivize normalcy and not disturbed area. How do you do that? Like in armed forces, you give unit citations, awards for things like how many ultras have been killed, what kind of operations have taken place. Is there a need to also give awards for where normalcy comes? For things like Super 30, which is run in J&K to train people to go to IIT. For areas where schools open, where civil administration goes. And also, state governments have their own narrow vested motives. So is it required that areas which are disturbed, the state government is put under pressure? How to do that? It's a challenge. Maybe in those areas, the posting of DCs, SSP and such like people should become a collegiate exercise. That means state government gives a panel and center approves. So that center starts having some direct control on administration. And whatever funds are spent there, they should be got specially audited. And release of subsequent funds should be a function of normalcy being brought in and not otherwise. So it's a complicated system. It's a complex exercise, but we need to somehow incentivize normalcy. See, it's very easy to blame and say Armed Forces Special Power Act gives you unlimited powers and all. But then if armed forces have to operate there, they do need that kind of protection. Because I have served in that area. Allow me to tell you that the judiciary, lower levels of judiciary, administration are all in league with those people. When we asked them why, they said, you will go away. We have to survive here. We have to marry our children. We have to make our houses. So their verdicts are also like that. Imagine a soldier who does an operation there. His unit has moved out. He has gone somewhere else. 10 years hence, because in these areas there are professional NGOs who specialize in hounding people for non-human rights. So 10 years hence, they will call him. Now his unit is not there. Records are not there. How will he defend himself? He is one man against this so-called bloody organization, this cabal which is come up and which is trying to fix it. So he needs some kind of protection. It is not either don't put him there. He is not gone there on his choice. He is volunteered to be part of Indian Army. But you have put him in a difficult area, then give him that protection.
Sir, in line with our current conversation, Yash Patil from the audience, he has a question that should the government withdraw AFSPA from Nagaland?
See, Yash, it's like this. You should withdraw from some parts of Nagaland, which are fairly normal, but definitely areas where insurgent groups are operating, like in the Mon district where the ambush took place recently, like Dimapur where NSC and IM is fairly active, like the district where NSC and IM has got its own headquarters. So such like districts, I think it will be a disaster to lift Armed Forces Special Power Act because they are genuinely disturbed. I've told you, it's a function of either it being disturbed or it being normal. If you are willing to call it normal, do it. And then you will find a problem that couple of years hence, where you can tackle it today with 10 people, you'll need 200 to tackle. They'll grow. So unless there is a guarantee, disarming of those people, and all these things are built in, I think it'll be playing with fire to remove it from all areas. You remove it from some areas, and you can bring it back in case if there are problems, but do not remove it from entire Nagaland. That's not recommended, in my perception.
Yes, sir. So, as we've also worked with the United Nations Peacekeeping Forces, could you distinguish how is working for the UN different from working for the Indian Army?
It's completely different thing because Indian Army has got a different kind of culture. UN has got very different culture. When we worked, there was hardly any culture. Now, at least, culture is being built in because that time it was largely a kind of an exercise where people went and just sort of, you found it sometimes amusing to see the response of other armies. Today it's become much more professional. So basically in a UN scenario, it is, you can order people only in your own unit, in your setup. When you're operating with different countries, you have to get them on board. Like I was leading a team which had people from Canada, from Jordan, from Morocco, from Guinea-Bissau. So I had to get all of them together and get them to agree. And sometimes you have to convince them, sometimes you have to overrule them. But then it's a much more complicated exercise. And also, Indian Armed Forces work under very professional norms. Like we work with minimal resources. In United Nations, minimal is also huge. It's not so minimal. They have a lot of resources, and some of them are wasted, which you would not like to do. But that's the culture there. So my experience over there was that everybody respected Indian Armed Forces, had great regard for us because of the culture that we exhibit there. And they ask us, like I used to wear a T-shirt of my regiment where it was written 63, and they used 63 is 63. So they used to ask me. I said, this is my culture. I do it over there. I'll try and do it over here, subject to agreement, because you are in a different environment.
Yes, sir. India has contributed a lot for the UNPKF, and it has almost sent more than 250,000 troops, and it is one of the major troop contributing countries. So, how do you think is Indian Army contributing towards, on a global scale, contributing towards global peace?
See, India has, right from the beginning, right from the inception, taken part in UN peacekeeping in a big way. And it is not, there is a kind of a feeling that Western powers only show commitment, but only commitment which is on paper, and not involvement, not getting physically involved. They don't want to get their hands dirty or bloody. Okay. So you have really no real contribution from USA. They do not work with United Nations. They, like in Afghanistan also, they had their separate force, and UN mission was operating in a parallel mode. In Angola also, when we were there, US troops came, but they were working in their own silo. They were not working with us. They used to coordinate with us. That's how. India has huge big footprint in UN peacekeeping. Basically, the countries which have very large footprint are India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. These are the countries which have huge big footprint.
Yes,
and they have sort of they have done creditable performance over there. This was also one of the arguments India was using to get into Security Council, that we make such a huge big contribution to peacekeeping. So we rightfully deserve to be part of Security Council, because China doesn't make that kind of contribution. UK hardly has. The French are there only in few missions. So Russia is just there in nominal. USA is not there at all. India is making such huge contribution, and everybody acknowledges that. So India was using it as a huge big argument for getting into Security Council. I think India should keep. It also gives us chance to validate ourselves again with other countries. It is also a means of projecting our professionalism to others.
Right.
So it's a great thing to do. And India should, within our own challenges, we should continue to contribute and participate in UN mission.
Yeah, and that's actually a logical argument which India is posing. Moving on, we just talked about global peace and all, but as we are modernizing, we are facing new challenges. And the recent drone attack in Abu Dhabi and the Pakistani drone intrusion in Punjab, they are just two examples of advanced machine warfare. So what do you think are the challenges that India can anticipate from a defense perspective?
See, name of the game is utilizing certain kind of disruptive technologies. Some technologies which induce a psychological collapse, like it happened in Azerbaijan, where armed drones were used in a huge big numbers, and victory was secured. similar kind of attempt has been made by Russia, by cyber attacks. That kind of thing has been tried. For India, the challenge is to develop these technologies. We are working in that direction. It requires, firstly, scientific knowledge, innovation, domain competence, operationalizing those weapons in that kind of form, ruggedized form, capable to operate at such terrains and in such challenging conditions. But also, we must remember that concurrently, it's not going to be that it is zero-sum game. No, it's not that way. Currently, our conventional capabilities are also relevant. We are operating in high altitude. We were told that Chinese will bring in microwave type of weapons and they will fry us. We will get evaporated, and Chinese drones will come and swarms will come and they will give noodles to all their soldiers and they'll be eating hot noodles over there. But nothing like that came. Nothing like that happened. We were also told that cyber-wise we'll be paralyzed, and they have got top-class surveillance, yet we could surprise them at Kailash range, despite their top-class surveillance. We have also not been psychologically or paralyzed in the cyber domain. No microwave weapons could be seen. So at those altitude, in those kind of conditions, even technology has limitations. You have to ruggedize it to a level that it can operate at that altitude in that kind of climatic conditions. And so my take is, India's current strength is high altitude warfare, fighting in snow, mountains. Also, we have the capability to take punishment, take casualties. Chinese don't do it. Chinese comparatively are soft. So while we hold this capability, we remain invested in this. We should also concurrently look at disruptive technologies. We are doing it. We are working in that direction. But in my perception, this change is going to take some time. And the name of the game is to remain firm in where you are good, where you have strengths, and simultaneously build up the other domain. So that's how we have to work. And we are working in that domain. We are working in the field of drones. We are working in cyber warfare. And now there is a talk of cognitive warfare also. So India is definitely working in this direction. But only thing we need to expedite or speed up fielding of such technologies. And you all have a role. You are technologists. You all can play a big role, because innovation in defense and excellence in that is being rewarded. Some institutions are getting funding based on that. So yes, you all can take up projects related to that.
Yes, sir. So do you think that there will be a time in near future when technology would completely overpower our conventional ways of defense?
It's there in sci fiction and all these novels and spy thrillers and books and movies. But human endeavor is to become non-kinetic, to take the war fighting to domain of cyber, space, cognitive warfare, and win it without even fighting. Paralyze enemies' computers or fight in space with satellites. That is the conception, that is the endeavor. Will that happen immediately? I don't think so. It will take some time. The kinetic dimension is also got, even in space, anti-satellite technologies are of two kinds. One is of electronically disabling the satellites. Second is of physically destroying the satellites. Both are being used. Even in cyber domain, the aspect of hitting communication nodes remains relevant. So I think a combination would remain, but the weightage will shift more towards non-kinetic dimension, as technologies become more fieldable and more operationalized.
Okay, sir. I completely agree, as you said, because I don't think technology can ever overpower conventional resources, because eventually it's us humans who are designing the technology. So we are definitely coming into the picture again. As we were speaking of all these challenges regarding the modern challenges, basically, so be it the new ergonomic combat uniform or the advanced Swadeshi armored vehicles, the Indian Army has always stepped up to the occasion. So, how do you feel India is faring, and what is next in line for the Indian Army?
See, Indian Army is always, and it is our culture to keep getting sort of contemporarized. You remain relevant in contemporary environment. That's how we look at it. So modernization of your weapons, of your gear that you wear, of your protective gear that you wear, all is happening concurrently, simultaneously. Some of it we don't hear, but it is happening, because before it is fielded, it has to be validated. Like this combat uniform that you are seeing, it is not as if a general woke up one day and said, wear this. It can't be like this.
Correct.
When you discard the old one and you bring in new one, you have to test it, you have to validate it. So I am sure this was given to a lab. We have such labs which see the how much is camouflage potential of this, how easily can it be detected. All those things, parameters have been checked out. It would have also been physically validated in a pilot project, in a pilot group, and then only it would have been accepted for fielding. It's not so easy.
Exactly.
So it takes that kind of validation.
Okay, sir. We have successfully come to the end of a very insightful session with you, and I now throw it open to the audience. We'll welcome questions from the audience now, and I'll just keep asking you questions which are from the audience one by one. So there is a question by Harshvardhan Kendre. What's your opinion on making it compulsory for every citizen to serve some tenure in the armed forces, considering the officer shortage in army and the population of India?
See, firstly, there is no shortage of candidates. It is the quality that we require. Quantitatively, we have no problem. There are enough people who are wanting to come to army. So we don't have to make it a compulsory endeavor. See, there are armies which are conscript armies, like Israeli army. Like American army has certain fixed tenure, national service. But those countries have challenges of demography. Enough number of people to come and serve there. We don't have any such challenge. China has a conscript model, but that model does not give motivated soldiers, does not build domain competence. We have a very successful model of a volunteer armed forces. Why should we throw it away in a hurry? I don't subscribe to that. Because we have enough people who come, but we do not have enough people of quality who come. So we need people who meet, because we can't dilute our standards. Why should we dilute our standards? We can live with some deficits. If there will be a war, we will have emergency commission like we had in 62, 65, and we will make up those numbers if required. And this fancy thought of everybody wanting to come there and just punch कि मैं भी भारतीय हूँ is not correct. If you come here, you come for a career. We have a permanent cadre. We have a short service cadre. There are enough opportunities. You can even come through territorial army. So just to come as a fashionable tick mark on a CV, I don't think that's a very good idea. I don't subscribe to it. I very sincerely believe, let us be a volunteer army. And if you want to serve your nation, do you even require to be in armed forces? See, today, NCC has got 15 lakh people. And there is a Nehru Yuvak Kendra, which is about 5-6 lakh people. Then there is National NSS, which is another 5-6 lakh people. Then there are Bharat Scouts and Guides. There are police cadet schemes in some states. There are marine cadet schemes in some states. There are enough opportunities to go and do national service if you wish to do it.
Right.
But what we require, in my perception, is that everybody should become a citizen warrior, a Nagrik Yodha, a Jagruk Hindustani. Because today, you don't have to be in armed forces, all of you. Why should you be? Abdul Kalam tried to join armed forces. He was rejected twice. And I said, thank God. Because if he was selected, he would have become just a pilot. But because he was rejected, he became a missile scientist and he gave us such technologies. So thank God Abdul Kalam was rejected. So everybody need not be in armed forces. Whichever domain you join, do your job well, and that's enough. The problem is we are not doing our duty properly in our own spheres. We are very good on Twitter, on Facebook, and I'm sorry, but you young people, let me be blunt with you. Today, the dominant theme is to think you are a Rambo. And you say, how's the Josh? How's the Josh? But my friends, more important is, how is the Hosh? How is the Hosh? You need to retain control. A person who designs a software for me, which can defeat without fighting, is better soldier than one who's wearing combat dress. So you are technologists, you excel in your field and develop technologies which help soldiers to fight better, rather than everyone clamoring to join armed forces. This is my take on it.
Thank you, sir. That was quite an eye-opener. The next question we have is by Varad Deshpande. He wants to ask you that why Pakistan has seen 4 military coups, whereas India has seen none, although before 1947, both were the parts of British Indian Army.
Because Indian Army believes in Constitution of India, is an armed forces. When I say army, I mean armed forces. It's a disciplined armed forces. It doesn't want to do politics. Whereas in Pakistan, the joke is, when Zia-ul Haq became the president of Pakistan, he refused to vacate the army chief's house. He stayed in Pindi house because he was very scared that if he leaves this house and goes to presidential palace, somebody will do a coup here. So here he used to keep his elements deployed to keep hearing what is happening in armed forces. So it's a culture based on deceit, on distrust, on suspicion. Our culture is much better. We should feel good about it, I'm telling you. And Myanmar, which is our neighbor, has got military rule. Bangladesh had military rule. In Sri Lanka, military has a very large signature. In India, it has got very limited signature. So we must feel proud of our armed forces, I must tell you. But what is required is that suo motu, voluntarily, on its own, the politicians, the civilian bureaucracy must look after such armed forces, rather than trying to put them down. Like there is a famous saying by Chanakya to Chandragupta, that the day your armed forces start demanding something, that day you have lost the moral right to rule your populace, your public. So you have to look after your armed forces. You have to invest in their modernization. You have to invest in their compensation. You have to invest in their security. And when a soldier goes and fights there and comes back, and he's looking for some license or some small work, and the Babu is not this thing, and he's even asking for a bribe, it breaks his heart. It destroys him. It demolishes him. He sometimes feels, are these the people I go to fight for? So please take this culture, and you all are going to be opinion makers. Such armed forces you've got, you must feel proud about it. And you must do everything to keep it like this. That's why I always say armed forces deserve some anonymity. Don't put them too much in public space. Let them do their things and don't make too much, don't politicize them. Don't try to take political advantage of armed forces. That's what is my belief.
Yes, so we'll definitely keep that in mind. The next question we have here is, which incident, according to you, is the incident in the 1971 war that we can was the last nail in the coffin of Pakistan armed forces in East Pakistan sector?
See, one incident you can't say because it was such an operation. But allow me to give you two or three because, and you can pick up, you can rate them the way you wish to rate them.
Definitely, sir.
One was crossing of Meghna. Meghna is a mighty river, more like an ocean or a sea. And when it had to be crossed, original plan of capture of Bangladesh was never to, or East Pakistan, not Bangladesh, East Pakistan, pardon me, please. We captured East Pakistan, we didn't capture Bangladesh, we liberated Bangladesh. So original plan for liberation of Bangladesh or capture of East Pakistan never seriously thought of capturing Dhaka. It thought of going and putting pressure on Dhaka. But the action of General Sagat Singh in crossing Meghna and para-dropping forces across, heli-dropping forces across, building an air bridge and doing a vertical envelopment and surprising Pakistan, in my perception, was a game changer. Similarly, the action where Niazi was dithering or was having second thoughts about surrender, the daring attack launched by Indian bombers on the governor house gave him a correct, very potent signal that you have no air force to defend you. The land forces have closed in on Dhaka. It's time for you to surrender. So these few incidents are the game changers, in my perception.
Okay, so the next question we have here is, would you please share your experience in capital of Uganda where ammunitions were attacked?
It's not Uganda, it is Angola. And the capital's name is Luanda. So you have mixed up,
Okay.
Uganda with Luanda. It is Angola's capital whose name is Luanda. See, what happened is in Luanda, there was an ammunition dump very next to our UN camp, which was called Villa Espa. So that was attacked. And when an ammunition dump is attacked, a lot of munitions start bursting on their own, which is called cooking of ammunition. Ammunition starts cooking on its own because of heat, thermal signature which builds up. And projectiles then, because they have some explosives which give them the initial trigger velocity. You're all technocrats, so you'll understand these ballistics. So when they take off and they're not being fired from a barrel which is pointed in the correct direction, they also take off towards UN camp. They took off in that direction. So we were getting attack on UN camp, not really a directed attack, but something which was happening. Those projectiles and those bomblets were landing in UN camp. There was a chaos. And I was part of a structure where I was just a major. And we had a military boss, a major general, who chose to go away. He knew this is going to happen. He went away to his embassy. And our political boss, a lady, nothing against her, she was a very strong lady, British lady. She was also in her embassy. Why they were there, I do not know. But the ground situation is no top person was there in our camp. And it was left to me to take, I was chief operations officer of that region. It was left to me to take all major decisions. So for a few days, everybody delegated everything to me. And like they say, as responsibility comes, you grow. And I kept on growing with the responsibility. And I kept on getting more empowered. But God was with me. Training of my Indian Army was with me. And I could do all that. I could go and look after people. get that camp secured, restore the water supply. So a very amusing incident happened that when normalcy returned, there was a debriefing carried out just to sort of this thing. And the bosses wanted to speak. But the people sitting there, like I told you, UN is a very democratic culture. Despite it being a military environment, they started thumping their desks and chair armrests, and they started shouting, "We want to hear KJ, KJ." I'm called KJ Singh. So suddenly a major, I felt very, like a hero. God is kind. It gave me that opportunity in international environment. So I stepped forward. I was told to step forward, and I briefed them. So nice, good. It was a great credit to India. So I validated what Indian Army had taught me. So thank you, Indian Army, and thank you, Luanda, for such a wonderful sense of validation.
I'm sure the pressure must be pretty intense, and the way you've handled it is commendable.
Thank you to you to help me, relive that and feel good in this old age. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So, could you talk about your experience in the Pathankot incident? This is another question by the audience.
See, Pathankot was a very complicated, complex operation. And it was an operation which initially was to be done by police till that camp was attacked, because police is to secure outer perimeter and all. We didn't know which place will be attacked because our own army installations were very insecure. We had no fences, no boundary walls. Now all that has come up after that incident. So we were scared. We were all guarding our own areas. And there was this intelligence which was there. So based on that, we had proactively moved some special forces and all. But NSG had been deployed there. So after NSG is deployed, operations are controlled by NSG. That operation was basically done by NSG. Army was in support, and it was a very complicated operation. There was a lot of pressure because of media glare and all, to finish it fast. But wherever I was involved, I took a very strong stand to say that don't hurry up. Let the operations take their time. Because in hurrying up, we lose more people. We had lost some people. We didn't want to lose many more people. And I was initially criticized in media for that stand. I had taken it consistently, but later it has been validated that it is the correct stand. When you are fighting militants, like in one operation, we had lost 3 people and we had killed 3 militants. So I told my forces that I do not want you to attack carry on this operation during night. Just keep them under pressure. We will resume it next morning. Before that night, we had lost 2 and we had killed 3 of theirs. So I told my people that I do not want to lose another person. There is one more person to be killed or neutralized. We will do it when there is daylight and when we are confident. We will keep him surrounded. We will not let him get out. We will reinforce that. And don't hesitate to use whatever weapons you have to use. So I had deployed armored personal carriers. And same thing I did in Pathankot. So my core belief is that there is no great thing to come under media pressure and get your people killed, but you should stand your ground and run the operation in a way that your people remain secure and you do not buy unnecessary casualties.
Yes, sir, definitely. Okay. Another person from the audience wants to know about your project Seema Khoj.
Yeah, thank you for asking this question. Seema Khoj is a kind of initiative which is undertaken by an NGO in Chandigarh. I am involved with them. I am at the back end and their volunteers work on the front end part of it. The basic concept is that people living in border areas need to be given a message of solidarity. of being connected with the heartland. So what we try to do is that from various institutions in Chandigarh, we collect study material. We do not take any money. We collect things like notebooks, pencils, books, lunch boxes, tiffin boxes, water bottles, color boxes, all these kind of things which are required by students, school bags, and we take them there and give it to those children. And we try to connect schools. It's something which is a project which is going on. And if your institution wants to get involved, you're welcome. If more of you. And it's also about building awareness about your border areas. It's also, there are villages and borders which are ghost villages, where nobody lives. Why? Because people are migrating to hinterland for education, for occupation, and Pakistan and China is building villages on our borders. So we need to also invest in our border areas to build vocations there, to build education there, and like an institution like VIT or others, or you, wherever you go as an opinion maker, you go on school trips.
Yes, sir.
All of you clamor to go to Dubai, to Singapore, and all this. Who is willing to go to border areas? Who's going to be willing to go there and show it to them that we have come from Pune and we want to be with you and do something for them? And when they come to your city, be an extension for them. Who's willing to adopt that? There are so many ideas like that. But I have limited resources and time. If we have more people joining such a venture and everybody takes initiative, it's a wonderful thing to do. Make your border villages thriving. Connect with them. Give them a message of solidarity. Go and visit them. Connect with them through virtually. Today you can do it on web. You can have Zoom conferences with them. So try and do some things with them. Thank you. Wonderful question.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. I think you finished your time, maybe.
Yes, sir. We just have one last question for you. Again, it's from the audience that is there anything about military services that you wish people knew more about or they understood better?
Basically, you don't have to understand too much about armed forces. You should know the rank structure so that you can know that he's like, I go to university and a lot of places where somebody calls me a captain, somebody calls me a colonel, somebody makes me a lieutenant. I don't mind it. It's okay. Like my decoration is AVSM and Bar, which is once you get an AVSM, second time you get Bar to AVSM. So many places the people say AVSM Bar, Lagatar. Lagatar is added from my side, but they say Bar. So one is that you must have awareness of these things, which is a good thing. And whenever armed forces are depicted, they should be depicted as per their culture. Like if you're showing a movie on armed forces, then people should be dressed appropriately. The movie should be made with a proper theme and not fictional story and all that should be. And also you should not have unrealistic expectations. Like here, I hear a lot of people on Twitter and all saying, go and attack Pakistan, go and bloody attack China. Is it that simple? Leave it to those people. They will do it. And they'll not ask you to do it. They'll not ask me also on Twitter. They'll do it. They have to surprise. It has to be a ghost maneuver. So it can't be discussed. It's beyond our domain competence to discuss that. So know about their basic organization structure, read about it. But don't start giving them suggestions and all which are their domain. So and give them a kind of sense of anonymity also. Too much of intrusion into armed forces is also not required. They have their own methods, they run it that way. And they have not failed us ever, have they? Unlike Pakistan, they have not taken over the country. So I have trust in them.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, once again. And we have successfully come to the end of a very insightful session with you. However, for the audience, this was just the beginning and a glimpse of what our main event actually looks like. We at VishwaConclave, we host our annual main conclave where we invite such dignified intellectuals from different domains, one of them being defense, for a one-on-one session with us, followed by audience interaction. As it is rightly said that it's more about what we do for the country than what our country does for us. Today, we all met a person who reignited the spirit of patriotism in all of us. Exemplary devotion towards the nation and immeasurable courage is what defines Lieutenant General Kamal Jit Singh. And it was a privilege for VishwaConclave to host you, sir, and provide an educational discussion on such an auspicious day as India's Republic Day. I'd like to thank everyone in the audience, and I hope you have been captivated and motivated to serve and join us together to progress our nation to a better future. VishwaConclave is just an attempt towards this mission, and we know you all will stay with us. So keep following us. Do follow our social media handles on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and stay tuned as we'll soon be releasing our updates for the main event as well. Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshita. I'll request if you can share a recording of this with me because I like to hear it to improve myself. Thank you. And let me wish Jai Hind to everybody and happy Republic Day. Stay motivated, stay safe, protect yourself in these difficult times, yet remain resilient because like I was an information commissioner, I started this practice of telephone hearing. And believe you me, my output increased. So COVID times have brought up unlocked new capabilities, new technologies. So try and take advantage of it, remain motivated and stay protected. Thank you. Jai Hind. And grateful to you for giving me this privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.